Mammy, Daddy made me a toy car!
Exclaimed 4-year-old Tommy, his cheeks flushed with excitement as he raced towards me, busy tending to the garden flower bed. In his hand, he proudly held the toy car crafted from a piece of scrap wood, eager to show it off to me. "Wow, that's really cool. Daddy did a great job." I praised him while brushing off the sawdust from his pants. Just then, my husband, David, appeared in his work clothes, smiling. "This is wonderful," I commented. David, a bit shyly, responded, "I just happen to have the right scrap wood." He enjoys his DIY projects, using weekends to build things like tables and chairs for the yard. Recently, he fulfilled a long-held dream of completing a pizza oven. These weekend DIY activities seem to be a great way for him to unwind from his busy work days.
"Daddy, I want to paint this."
Tommy looked up at David.
Sure, we don't have natural paints for toys. Let's go to the home improvement store and see if we can find some.
David suggested, patting Tommy's head and turning to me. "I'm Elizabeth Johnson, a 35-year-old. I'm currently a housewife, but I used to work as a clinical laboratory technician at a hospital. But I quit my job to focus on family life after getting married and having Tommy. We're a happy family of 3, living contentedly with my kind, DIY-loving husband, 7 years my older, and our adorable son." After buying some paint and gardening supplies at the home improvement store, we stopped by a grocery store we don't usually visit to pick up ingredients for dinner. As we browsed the aisles, David and Tommy both excitedly agreed on steak for dinner. Soon, Tommy ran off towards the candy aisle. Then David followed Tommy and said, "I'll keep an eye on him. Take your time shopping." While I was selecting beef for the steak, I was startled to hear my name.
"Elizabeth?"
I turned around in surprise to see Rachel Adams, a high school classmate, standing there with her shopping basket. "Rachel?" I was shocked to see her, and memories of unpleasant high school experiences flooded back.
"Elizabeth's lunch is so cute,"
my friends would say, admiring the creative touches my mother added to my lunches. Like a bear character made with ketchup on a hash brown or tulip-shaped sausages. My lunches weren't elaborate, but they were always lovingly prepared with playful details. I always tell Mom it's embarrassing for a high schooler, but she won't stop. I'd grumble, trying to hide my embarrassment. My friends would reassure me, "It's fine, it's enviable." But then Rachel would chime in loudly, "Guys, look at this. Elizabeth's lunch is just full of frozen food." My busy working parents couldn't always make everything from scratch. But the balanced, colorfully arranged lunches were still a source of pride for me. "That's none of your business," I snapped back at Rachel. One of my friends who was eating with us said, "So, what about Rachel's lunchbox?" glaring at Rachel. Then, Rachel, as if waiting for this moment, brought her own lunchbox and opened it. It contained fancy-looking meals, but everything was homemade and looked deliciously colorful.
"That looks so tasty."
My classmates gathered around Rachel.
"See? Nothing like that trashy lunchbox,"
Rachel said, looking at me with a triumphant smile. But that wasn't all. Rachel always picked on me and made fun of me. I was always hurt by her words and actions, making my high school life miserable. Looking at Rachel standing before me, I was overwhelmed with the frustration I felt back in high school. It had been about 6 years since we last met, at the most recent class reunion. Back then, I heard she was running a small cafe, but I wasn't sure about her current situation. Rachel was always strikingly beautiful, and that hadn't changed. But her personality remained the same, arrogant, always needing to be the best, and a bit of a show-off. Long time no see. I greeted her with a forced smile.
Yeah, it's been a while. 6 years, isn't it? Elizabeth, what are you up to now? Your job was in the medical field, right?
I quit my job as a clinical laboratory technician. I left soon after getting married and having a child. Rachel raised her eyebrows slightly.
Oh, you got married. Living around here, in a house?
I could tell that the word married had flipped her queen bee switch. Well, we bought our house about a 15-minute drive from here. I rarely come to this store. I just stopped by on my way home from shopping. And you? I heard you were running a cafe. I tried to steer the conversation towards her. Although I wasn't genuinely interested in her life. Yes, it's going well. We're really busy with lots of customers, Rachel said, flipping her long hair. Just then, Tommy came running up with some candy, followed by my husband.
Mom, I want this.
He asked, putting the candy into the shopping basket. Rachel looked surprised to see Tommy.
A child?
Yes. Hey Tommy, say hello. I encouraged my son, who was shyly clinging to my leg.
Hello.
Tommy greeted timidly.
Hello? You're Tommy, right? It's great you can greet people properly, huh?
Rachel looked puzzled at my husband standing next to me, then turned her gaze to me. Oh, this is my husband, David. She was classmates in high school. Rachel Adams. I introduced them to each other. My husband smiled politely and greeted her warmly. Nice to meet you, I'm David Johnson. But Rachel looked at him as if he were something dirty, scrutinizing him from head to toe.
That outfit.
Sorry about this. I was in the middle of some carpentry work and decided to head out suddenly, hence the attire.
My husband explained with a chuckle. Rachel then smirked and turned to me.
The guy I'm dating is an elite doctor at a university hospital. Compared to that, who Elizabeth?
I couldn't believe her words. What are you talking about? My husband is. My husband calmly interrupted me and asked Rachel.
Which university hospital would that be?
The university's cardiovascular department.
She said that boastfully. My husband and I exchanged glances.
Really? Cardiovascular, you say? What's his name?
Michael Thompson. Why? Rachel looked confused.
Thompson, I know him.
Huh?
Rachel's face stiffened.
Oh, he is my coworker. He works in the same department as me. I had no idea he had such a beautiful girlfriend.
Coworker?
Watching Rachel stumble over her words.
I'm surprised. My husband is an associate professor at T University's affiliated hospital, specializing in cardiology. So he's Rachel's boyfriend's direct supervisor?
I said hesitantly. Rachel stumbled over her words.
What? Associate professor. But you said you were doing carpentry work?
These were clothes. My husband loves DIY on weekends. He even built a pizza oven in our garden. My husband and I shared a laugh at that.
So that's why you were in work clothes. Well, I mean...
Rachel stammered, her face turning bright red with embarrassment.
Please take good care of my boyfriend.
She said that, leaving the scene quickly. My husband and I exchanged looks of disbelief.
What was that about?
He chuckled, tilting his head. I responded with a shrug. Tommy, imitating us, also tilted his head and said, "I dunno," which made us burst into laughter. As we were about to get into our car after shopping, we heard a voice, "Excuse me." Surprised, we turned around to see Rachel standing near the car, tears in her eyes. David instinctively stepped forward to shield us.
What's wrong?
When my husband said that, then suddenly squatted on the ground and apologized.
I'm so sorry for what I said earlier.
In her desperate apology, my husband quickly grabbed her shoulder and helped her up, while passers-by gave us curious looks.
What's going on? Please, stand up. It's okay now.
Michael, he's working so hard, and I've just insulted his boss. If I've caused any trouble for his career, please forgive me.
Rachel sobbed like a child. I approached her and handed her a handkerchief. David isn't the kind of person who lets personal feelings interfere with work. He's not petty like that.
Elizabeth,
taking the handkerchief and looking at me.
Actually, Thompson is doing quite well in his job. Regardless of how I feel about your earlier behavior, it has nothing to do with his work, so don't worry.
I'm really sorry.
Rachel said, visibly relieved, dabbing her tear-swollen eyes with the handkerchief. I was surprised by this side of Rachel I'd never imagined in high school, thinking she must truly love this Thompson. As I pondered this, Tommy stepped forward.
Here, cheer up.
Tommy said sweetly, and offered her a strawberry-flavored candy from his little hand. Rachel asked, "Really? Can I have this?" looking at me before gratefully accepting the candy with a smile. Perhaps the love with her boyfriend was changing her. I thought about her red forehead and the smile she gave Tommy. On the way home, David told me about Rachel's boyfriend, Michael Thompson, a 32-year-old cardiologist working in the same department as him at the hospital. Despite his youth, he's known for his excellent work.
But the poor guy barely gets any time off with all his on-call shifts, and he's ambitious, always trying to keep his superiors happy. He probably doesn't have much of a personal life.
That's so. From Rachel's behavior earlier, their relationship might not be going so well. I said, concerned. David, a bit exasperated, replied,
Are you actually worried about her? Remember how she judged people by their looks and treated you badly in high school?
I'm not worried about her. It's just that she seemed different than before. As someone who also loves a doctor that is the same as your job, I thought maybe I could help. I responded a bit strongly.
You're too kind-hearted, you know that, even after she insulted me like that.
I'm sorry. I could understand why my husband was upset.
Well, that's one of your good points, though.
David said teasingly with a smile, and I turned my gaze to the passing scenery, feeling relieved. The following weekend, David was all excited to use our newly built pizza oven. He planned to host a pizza party for lunch and was inviting guests. The guests were Thompson and Rachel.
Next weekend, we're having Thompson and Rachel over for a pizza party,
he announced 3 days after the incident. According to David, Thompson and Rachel met at her cafe and had been dating for about 2 years, but recently, Thompson had suggested taking a break. Not because he didn't like her or had found someone else, but for other reasons. Thompson and Rachel were having difficulties due to his busy schedule, hardly finding time for each other. It seemed he thought they might be better off parting ways for both their sakes. So, back at the grocery store, they were all ready. I recalled our encounter with Rachel.
They haven't officially broken up, but they haven't seen each other much lately. I haven't told Thompson about that day. She must have been confused, just having had the breakup conversation with him.
It's surprising. Rachel, with all her pride, going as far as kneeling down for someone she was about to break up with.
Despite their issues, it felt a shame for them to part ways. Maybe it's none of my business, but since you and Rachel were classmates, I thought of inviting them over together.
David crossed his arms, lost in thought. I couldn't help but smile at him. You once called me too kind-hearted, remember?
Oh.
David looked away awkwardly, realizing what I meant. You're just as kind-hearted yourself. But that's what I love about you. His ears turned red at my words, and he quickly excused himself to check on the pizza oven. I watched him go, savoring my happiness. The doorbell rang, and Tommy excitedly opened the door. Thompson and Rachel stood side by side.
Thank you for having us.
I closely observed Thompson as he greeted us at the door. Thompson was a tall, slender man with pale skin, his sharp, somewhat nervous eyes intensified by the silver-rimmed glasses he wore. My husband is always grateful for your help, I said and offered them to in our house. Please, come in. Rachel, looking uneasy, started about the other day. Don't worry about it. I whispered reassuringly, gently touching her back. Tommy, eager to share his excitement, grabbed her hand. The pizza is almost ready. I helped make it. Rachel's mood lifted instantly. Really? That's amazing.
I brought this for dessert.
Rachel said, producing a homemade cake from a paper bag. It was beautifully presented, a testament to her cafe-owning skills. Thank you, Rachel. Do you serve this cake at your cafe? It looks delicious. As I said, she looked at me with an apologetic expression.
I'm not running the cafe anymore. I'm sorry, I lied the other day.
Then, glancing at David and Thompson was chatting in the garden, she suddenly said,
I must look foolish, don't I? I've always been pretentious and awkward since high school. I was always envious of you, Elizabeth.
What? I was surprised. Rachel slowly began to open up. Her parents divorced when she was in middle school. Her mother, lacking financial means, didn't take her in, so she grew up with her father. Soon after, her father remarried. The stepmother had a young, frail child and paid little attention to Rachel, making her feel increasingly alienated. The stepmother never cared for Rachel, so Rachel had to prepare own school lunches. Feeling lost and without a place in her family, Rachel craved attention.
I just wanted people to notice me, even if just at school.
She realized that she had become self-centered, unable to see beyond her needs.
Elizabeth, you were always like a dandelion in spring, so calm and smiling.
Rachel spoke with a distant look in her eyes. Really? I didn't think so.
That's why people always gather around you. Without even trying, everyone just loved you for who you are. I tried so hard to get attention, but I could never be like you.
Rachel turned to me and apologized.
That's why I was mean to you, wanting to see you troubled. I'm truly sorry for how I was back then.
She continued.
Even at the grocery store, you were surrounded by this atmosphere of a kind mother, with a cute child and a caring husband. You had everything I didn't. I felt like I could never match up to you, and that's why I said those awful things.
I placed my hand on Rachel's shoulder. It's not about winning or losing, Rachel. You are you. Let's just forget all that happened. I want you to be happy."
Elizabeth!
Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes. Just then, we heard David's voice. "Hey, the pizza's almost ready."
Almost ready.
Tommy shouted, imitating his father. Rachel and I exchanged a smile and began carrying other dishes and utensils to the garden table. Thompson, having to return to the hospital later, was drinking mineral water.
You don't have to go back to the hospital on your day off. Can it wait until tomorrow?
David asked, pouring wine into his glass.
There are some documents I want to review today.
Thompson responded, then continued discussing challenging cases and showing interest in David's research. He seemed to be deliberately avoiding eye contact with Rachel. Rachel was playing with Tommy.
I have a question about your paper, David.
David interrupted him.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes, sir.
it's important to switch between work and leisure. If you keep pushing yourself, you'll burn out.
David chuckled while checking the pizza oven.
I knew it, but I want to advance in my career as quickly as possible.
Thompson seemed a bit frustrated.
Why are you so rushed?
Well, it's because
Thompson hesitated, glancing at Rachel. I sensed his pain behind his eyes. Is it for Rachel's sake? Rachel looked surprised and turned to Thompson. Thompson remained silent. Suddenly, the garden gate opened and an old man. He is Smith, a kind-hearted 70-year-old neighbor.
Sorry to intrude. I called out at the front, but then I heard voices here.
Smith, come join us.
David stood up and approached him. Smith, holding a bag full of fresh onions from his garden, said, No, I just bought these. Smith, who had a nearby farm and often shared his harvest with us, brought over some fresh vegetables. Wow, thank you so much, I said, just as a loud thud sounded. Onions rolled across the lawn. Then Smith clutched his chest and collapsed.
Smith,
David and Thompson rushed to him. He was sweating and unresponsive.
he has hypertension and diabetes. Looks like a strong suspicion of a heart attack.
David said while loosening Smith's clothing.
Elizabeth, call an ambulance and contact his family.
Right away. I asked Rachel to please look after Tommy.
David. He's in cardiac arrest.
Thompson announced, starting CPR until the paramedics arrived.
Smith, you're going to be okay. The ambulance is coming soon.
David kept talking to him. Rachel, holding Tommy tightly, watched the scene, trembling.
That's great news. No, it's nothing. Just please take care.
David said, handing up the phone and sighing deeply.
The family said Smith regained consciousness, and there's no life-threatening issue.
That's a relief. We all smiled in relief. Rachel, overwhelmed, sat down.
Are you okay?
Thompson rushed to her side.
Michael, your job is constantly like this. And I was just thinking, being a doctor's wife looks good. I was so foolish, complaining about not seeing you enough, not understanding how hard it is to be responsible for people's lives. I'm so sorry for everything till now.
Rachel was tearful.
No, if I had been more capable at my job, I would have been there to support you when you had to make the big decision to close the cafe. I always left you feeling lonely. I thought you couldn't be happy with me. That's why I suggested we take a break.
David and I exchanged glances and quietly left them to talk alone.
Dr. Johnson, Elizabeth, thank you so much for today.
Thompson and Rachel greeted us at the door. They both had warm, gentle smiles.
Come again, Thompson. Next time, leave work behind.
I will.
He replied with a shy smile.
Elizabeth, thank you. Please say thank you to Tommy too.
He'll be sad you're gone when he wakes up. He's really taken to you both. Please make sure to visit again. Rachel nodded with a smile and left with Dr. Thompson, looking very much in harmony. They had talked things through and realized how important they were to each other, deciding to start over from scratch. Rachel also mentioned she was planning to reopen her cafe. David and I sat on the deck chairs in our garden, sipping the remaining wine.
Being a doctor's wife must have been tough for you too, right?
David said apologetically. Yes, it was. You were always so busy and hardly ever home. I had no one to talk to about Tommy. David listened, looking down. But remember what you said when you proposed. Trust me, that's why I decided to always be by your side, no matter what.
Elizabeth.
David looked up at me.
As doctors, we fight every day to save the lives in front of us. But we can do that because our families support us. I've never forgotten to be grateful for that.
You?
Even when I can't be there, I always care about you and our family. I want you to keep trusting me and stay by my side.
David said, gripping my hand firmly. Likewise, I'm counting on you for the future. We smiled at each other and raised our wine glasses, toasting to our family's happiness.